I'm not telling you this for attention. I'm telling you because I need to write it down before I start doubting myself again. I've already gone through weeks of trying to rationalize it, then forgetting pieces of it, then waking up at night feeling like I'm choking on my own breath. And when I do sleep, I dream of that smell, the stale, sour stench of someone else's sweat on my pillow. Not mine. Never mind. I moved into this apartment in late October. The timing was stupid, moving just before winter when the air in this city feels like cold metal pressed against your lungs. But the rent was cheap, the building was quiet, and the landlord didn't ask too many questions. The first night I stayed here, I noticed something strange about the bedroom. It was the smallest of the two in the unit, but it was the only one that didn't have a draft from the window. The carpet was that thin, gray kind you see in budget motels, and the walls were painted in off-white that almost looked beige under the dim yellow ceiling light. It should have felt safe, cozy even. Instead, it felt, I don't know the word, preoccupied, like the air in there didn't belong to me. The bed frame and mattress had been left by the last tenant. I've been warned about that kind of thing, bed bugs, stains, God knows what else, but the mattress looked new and the frame was sturdy. Still, I bought new sheets, a blanket, and a pillow of my own just to make the room feel clean. The first week was uneventful. Work, sleep, unpack boxes. The building was quiet except for a neighbor down the hall who coughed constantly. The cough was deep and rattling, the kind that comes from the chest. I never met them. It wasn't until the 8th night that something changed. I woke around 3 in the morning. At first, I thought it was because the radiator had kicked on, the pipes groaning and hissing like they were alive. But then I noticed my pillow felt damp, not wet exactly, but warm in a way that made my stomach tighten, like someone had been lying on a moment before I woke. I lifted my head, ran my hand over the fabric. It was dampest in the center, and as my fingers pressed into it, I caught a whiff of that smell. Sweat. Not the fresh, salty kind you get after exercise. This was old, sour, human. I sat up in bed, fully awake now, and looked around the room. My door was shut, locked from the inside. The window was latched. I told myself maybe I'd drooled in my sleep, but the smell clung to my fingers. It wasn't saliva, and I don't sweat much when I sleep. My sheets were dry. My clothes were dry. Just the pillow. I changed the pillowcase, threw the used one in the hamper, and tried to shake it off. The second time it happened was worse. A few nights later, I woke to that same damp warmth against my cheek, but this time I was lying in a different position. My head was turned toward the wall, and the sensation was heavier, as if the pillow had been compressed beneath someone else's head. When I rolled over, the indentation was there. I froze, staring at the sunken dip in the pillow where no one should have been. The middle was darker than the edges, and my throat tightened when I saw that the shape wasn't circular. It looked like the side of a face. The smell was overwhelming this time. Sharp, almost acidic. I didn't touch it. I grabbed the pillow by the corner and dropped it on the floor. I didn't sleep the rest of the night. I started inspecting the bedroom every morning before I left for work and every night before bed. I told myself it was just to make sure I felt safe, but deep down, I was looking for something. Evidence. The problem was, I didn't know what I wanted to find. Sometimes, I thought maybe it was just my imagination, that I was feeding into my own paranoia. But then small things began to stand out. Once, the pillowcase was slightly twisted when I woke up, as if it had been gripped and shifted by someone's hands. Twice, I woke to the sound of faint breathing in the room, a shallow, slow rhythm. But when I opened my eyes, it was gone. 3 times, I dreamed I was lying in bed and felt someone crawling behind me, their arm draped across my side, their chest pressing against my back. In the dream, I could smell them, and every time, I woke to the damp pillow. The landlord brushed me off when I mentioned it. "There's no way anyone's getting in," he said. "Solid deadbolt. You'd hear the hinges if the door opened." I didn't mention the smell. I didn't mention the dreams. Instead, I started sleeping in the living room, on the couch. The first 2 nights were peaceful. No damp pillows, no strange indentations. On the third night, though, I woke up with my head on the couch armrest, and there it was. The smell, the dampness. And this time, there was no pillow under my head. That was the night I realized it wasn't about the bed. It was about me. Whatever this was, it followed me. And the more I noticed it, the stronger it seemed to get. I didn't sleep the night after the first incident. Every time I closed my eyes, I thought about the imprint in the pillow, those dark, uneven marks that seemed to glisten faintly in the dim light, almost as if they were still wet when I first saw them. The smell wouldn't leave my mind either, warm, sour, and wrong. It wasn't my smell, and it didn't belong to anything I knew. I kept telling myself I'd just sweat in my sleep and was overthinking it. That's what a normal person would believe. But a part of me, a stubborn, itching piece of my brain, kept whispering that I hadn't sweated at all. Not like that. Not enough to leave that much. And certainly not enough to leave it in that shape. The marks were oval, wide in the middle, narrowing at the edges, like the back of someone's head pressing into the pillow. 2 nights later, something new happened. I was lying in bed, staring at the ceiling, my phone in my hand, and my body heavy with exhaustion. I was in that strange place between awake and asleep when I heard it, the faintest sound, right beside my head. Breathing. Not the kind you make when you're asleep, all steady and slow. This was heavier, damp, the kind of breath someone makes when they're trying not to be heard, but their lungs just can't help it. A wet inhale, a slow, careful exhale. I froze. My mind went immediately to the sweat stains, to the feeling that I'd been sleeping next to something without knowing it. My eyes flicked toward the pillow beside mine, the one that had been stained before. It was empty, but I swear on everything, I could feel the warmth of someone's head still resting there. The sound stopped the second I sat up. The next morning, I decided to test myself. Maybe I was paranoid. Maybe it was all in my head. I stripped the bed completely, sheets, pillowcases, everything, and ran them through a hot wash. I even sprayed the pillows with disinfectant, the scent of chemical lemon lingering in the air. Then I put everything back, fresh and crisp. That night, I slept with my phone recording audio. I sat on the nightstand, screen down, and told myself I'd listen in the morning if I heard something strange. I didn't have to wait until morning. At 3:17 a.m., I woke to the sound of my phone clicking. Not a ring, not a notification, just a faint mechanical click, like something tapping the microphone. I checked the recording the next day. Most of it was just white noise, the soft hum of the fan, the occasional rustle of me turning over. But then, at exactly 3:17, there was a different sound. A breath. Long, wet, and so close to the microphone that I could hear the saliva shift in the mouth that made it. And then, just after that, a whisper. Muffled low, almost impossible to make out. But I played it over and over until I was certain. It said my name. That same night, I found the sweat stains again. It wasn't just the pillow this time. It was the sheets right next to where my body had been. The same shape. The same dark, damp patch. It looked like someone had been lying there beside me, breathing against my ear, watching me. I didn't want to touch it. I didn't even want to get close. The smell was worse now, sharp and almost metallic beneath the sourness. And the terrifying thing? The sheets were still warm. I didn't sleep for more than an hour the night after the shadow crawled out of the sweat stain. When my alarm finally went off at 6 a.m., I didn't feel relief, just dread. Because the first thought I had was, I have to look at it again. The pillow was still there on the bed, of course, lying exactly where I dropped it after last night's thing. I expected the stain to be gone, that maybe my brain had conjured the crawling movement out of exhaustion, but it wasn't. The mark was still there, dark and heavy on the fabric, like a shadow that had been pressed into the fibers. The shape had changed again. Before, it had been vaguely face-like. Now it looked sharper. The blotches had elongated in a way that looked almost deliberate. The two eye shapes were deeper, darker, and lower than before, as if whatever was making the stain had tilted its head down and was looking up at me. And the mouth, God, the mouth had curled just enough to make me think it was smiling. I don't know how long I stood there staring, but the air in the room felt too heavy, as if every breath pulled in something damp and warm. It didn't smell bad, no rot, no mildew, but there was this faint, salty odor that made me think of someone's skin after a fever. I threw the pillow into my closet, literally, slammed the door, but it didn't matter. By the time I got home from work, the smell had crept out again. I'm not proud of this, but I decided to film it. Half because I needed evidence, half because I was desperate to prove to myself I wasn't losing it. I set my phone up on my desk, camera pointed directly at the pillow on my bed. I left the room. For 2 hours I stayed in the kitchen, scrolling aimlessly, trying not to think about it. When I came back, my phone was still recording. The pillow looked unchanged. I stopped the video and started scrubbing through. For a while, it was just still footage, my empty room. Then, about 40 minutes in, I saw it. The stain shifted. Not a trick of the light, not fabric settling. It moved. Slowly, like something underneath was pressing up and changing the pattern from beneath the pillowcase. The mouth widened. The eyes deepened. The stain thickened, like wet ink soaking into paper. And then something even worse happened. The blanket on the bed depressed slightly, like weight had been added just beside the pillow. No one was there. I deleted the video. I wish I could say I didn't know why I did it, but I do. Keeping it felt like an invitation for whatever this was to follow me, even when I wasn't looking. That night, I tried to sleep on the couch. I buried my head under a different pillow, one from the linen closet that smelled like detergent and nothing else. At 3:17 a.m., I woke up. I didn't know what pulled me out of sleep until I heard it, a faint, wet sound, like someone breathing with their mouth open, but too close, far too close. I froze, barely breathing, listening. The sound didn't seem to come from the room. It was inside my head. No, not quite. More like it was coming from somewhere behind me that my ears couldn't pinpoint. I rolled over slowly, and the sound stopped. Then, from the darkness toward the bedroom, I heard the faintest shift of fabric. The smell hit next, warm, salty, fever skin, the same as the pillow. By morning, I convinced myself I dreamed it. But when I went into my bedroom to grab clothes for work, the closet door was open. Inside, the pillow was on the floor. The stain was bigger. I snapped a picture and sent it to my friend Ryan, who's into paranormal stuff. I told him it was a weird water stain and asked what he saw. He texted back almost immediately. Dude, that looks like a face, but not right. Like the eyes are too far apart. Why? I didn't answer him, because as soon as I'd sent that picture, the mouth part of the stain seemed longer than in the photo I'd just taken, as if the act of showing someone else had made it react. That night, I locked the closet door. I even wedged a chair under the handle. I fell asleep on the couch again, TV on low, just trying to drown out any sound. At some point, I woke to find the TV had turned itself off. The screen was black. My reflection stared back at me. Only. It wasn't just mine. There was something behind me in the reflection, crouched low, face close to mine. I spun around. Nothing. But the smell was there again. And from my bedroom. A muffled, wet giggle. By the time part 4 begins, I no longer tried to convince myself it was imagination. I had exhausted every rational explanation: mold, leftover sweat from the previous tenant, some bizarre skin condition, and none of it fit. None of it explained the movement, the smell, or the sound. I started documenting everything in a notebook. Time, temperature, anything unusual, how the pillow felt, how the stain looked. I called it the events, like I was cataloging a science experiment. Because by now, it wasn't just a stain. It wasn't just sweat. It was something that lived there. I thought I could keep sleeping on the couch. I thought it would stay on the bed, confined to the pillow. I was wrong. I woke in the middle of the night, gasping. The smell was there before I even opened my eyes. Warm, sour, unmistakable. My chest was tight, and my arms felt heavy. I realized slowly that the weight was pressing down on my legs. I shot upright. Nothing was on the couch. I looked toward the bedroom. The door was closed, but I could hear movement. Slow, dragging, soft shuffles. I grabbed a baseball bat from the closet and stepped in. The bed was empty. The pillow, still in the center, had a deeper indentation than I remembered. And then I saw it. The stain had shifted again, elongating across the top of the pillow like something had stretched, curling over the edge. The shape was grotesque. Eyes where they shouldn't be, mouth wide and wet-looking. And it was moving, slowly, inch by inch, like a living creature. I swung the bat. The stain did nothing. It didn't spread, didn't respond, but it seemed to quiver, almost as if the impact hurt it. I thought I could escape by leaving the apartment. I took a shower to scrub off the smell, cleaned everything, replaced the pillow, sheets, blankets. I even bought a new mattress protector. I went to bed that night with a freshly laundered pillow. At 2:53 a.m., I woke again. The pillowcase was damp. Not just damp, wet in patches like fingerprints. And then I smelled it. The human sour, salty, almost chemical scent. My stomach nodded because this time it smelled like skin, like someone had been pressed against me, sweating. I dared to lift the pillow. The stain beneath it had changed. It was different this time. Wider, darker, and darker around the edges. And the indentation. It wasn't circular. It was shaped like a hand pressing from inside. I ran my fingers along it. The warmth was real. The weight was real. I tried to convince myself it was a hallucination. Exhaustion. Stress. The city, life, anything. And then it whispered. Not loud. Not fully formed. Just a soft, wet sound, like someone speaking directly against my ear. Move. Sleep. Stay. I couldn't make sense of it. And when I pulled the pillow away, The stain shifted, the mouth curling up, opening just slightly, wet like it wanted to speak again. I ran out of the apartment that night. I didn't take the couch or anything with me. I didn't sleep until sunrise. Over the next few days, the presence became more aggressive. Sheets would slide off the bed by themselves. I'd wake to find the pillow at the edge of the bed, hanging over the side, like it had been dropped. Sometimes the stain would look like someone's knees pressing into it, not just a head. On 2 separate occasions, I woke to the sound of dragging across the floor toward my couch. I realized then, the bed wasn't just a place where the thing rested. It was a staging ground. It was learning, testing, waiting. I started sleeping with the bedroom door locked, but the lock did nothing. I woke one night to find it wide open. My keys, wallet, and phone had all been moved to the floor beside the bed. I didn't touch anything. I didn't scream. I didn't run. I just stared at the pillow, and then it moved again. A dark, wet smear sliding across the surface. Inch by inch, slowly, toward the edge, toward me. I realized something terrifying. It didn't just want me to see it. It wanted me to feel it. I didn't sleep at all the night before the final incident. Every time I closed my eyes, I could feel it there, a weight pressing down on the side of the couch where I tried to escape. The smell followed me, clinging to my clothes, my hair, my skin. Salty, sour, alive. By then, I had stopped telling anyone what was happening. Friends, co-workers, even Ryan, who had been following my texts about the pillow, didn't hear from me. I didn't want anyone to see me like that. I didn't want anyone to hear the whisper in my apartment. I didn't want anyone else to smell it. It started subtly that night, hours before the full event. I noticed the living room light flickering in sequence, almost like a heartbeat, slow and irregular. The TV, which I had unplugged and tossed into the closet, was now back on in the corner of the room. Static filled the screen. I didn't turn toward it. I knew what it would show: movement under the static, shadows curling like smoke, something waiting. Then came the whispers, faint at first. Sleep. Stay. Cool me. I shook my head, thinking exhaustion had finally claimed me. But the whispers grew louder, angrier. They were close now, right against my ear, wet and warm. They spoke words I couldn't understand, syllables pulled backward, stretched, broken. And my name, my real name, it wasn't my imagination. I knew it. I tried to escape again. I tried to sleep elsewhere, on the kitchen floor, sitting upright in a chair, even standing against the wall. Nothing worked. At 2:53 a.m., I felt it. The couch under me depressed slightly, not as if I had shifted, but as if something heavier than air had pressed into it. I froze. My limbs stiffened, and then I smelled it. Closer this time. Not just sweat, but the pungent, raw warmth of human skin, alive and pressing against mine. I dared to look. The pillow had moved. Slowly, inch by inch, across the couch. Its indentation was deeper than ever. I could see the contours of a head and shoulders pressed into it, dark stains forming shapes that weren't random. They were deliberate, aware, human-like. Then it moved again, lifting slightly. I could see it shifting, its arms under the pillow, reaching toward me. The movement was subtle but terrifying, like a predator feeling for prey in the dark. I wanted to scream. I wanted to throw myself from the apartment, but my body betrayed me. Every part of me was frozen. Then the weight shifted. I felt fingers, or something shaped like fingers, brush against my arm. Cold, wet, and sticky. Not fully solid, but enough to feel the pressure, the texture. I pulled back violently. The thing didn't stop. It pressed closer. My skin itched, burned, and the smell grew, turning metallic, tangy. I stumbled back, falling onto the floor. The pillow followed, sliding from the couch to the carpet, moving with deliberate intent, and for the first time, I realized it wasn't just a pillow anymore. It was alive. I tried to fight, scream, throw anything at it. Nothing worked. Then it whispered, not in my ear this time, across the room, over the walls, inside my skull. Sleep. Sleep. Stay with me. The words weren't spoken in a voice I recognized. They were mine, but wrong. Crooked, wet, and full of rage. I couldn't move, couldn't breathe. Then came the realization. It had learned me. My habits, my fear, my exhaustion. It had mimicked my voice, and now it was trying to lure me into it. I don't remember how long I lay there. Minutes, hours, maybe seconds. Time didn't exist. And then I heard it. The sound of skin sliding over skin, wet and heavy. My eyes tracked the movement. The stain, the pillow, the dark shape pressed against it. It was pulling itself free. Half of it was solid, pale, human-like, and crawling toward me. I scrambled backward. The room was dark, but the reflection of the window showed movement. My reflection? No, not my reflection. Something crouched there, face pressed against the glass of reality, like it wanted in. I grabbed the bat again, swinging blindly. I didn't hit it. I couldn't hit it. I ran. Through the kitchen, the hallway, the front door. Outside, the cold air hit me like a wall. I didn't stop. I ran to the street, screaming, heart hammering, smelling the faint trace of sweat trailing behind me, even in the open air. The apartment is still there. I don't go back. I left my lease, my belongings, even my keys. But sometimes, at night, I get a message on my phone. A photo. It's always the pillow. Always the same sweat stain, somehow darker, deeper, more formed. And sometimes, if I stare at it long enough, I can see it move. I know it's waiting, and I know it's learning, and I know that one day it will come for me again. The sweat stains are not just on the pillow. They're on me now. And if you ever wake up and feel something warm pressing against your pillow, something breathing close enough for you to smell it, remember, it doesn't belong to you. It belongs to the one who sleeps inside the pillow. And it's always hungry.